ready to go? Good. So my name's Tracy, and my business partner, Jam, is actually having surgery right now. So I'm stepping in for him. He's normally the loud and colorful one on stage, so I will do my best, but please bear with me and have a little patience. Yeah, so Jam and I founded Open Strategy Partners in the last year, and it basically was the result of some intense discussions about marketing and communications that essentially snowballed into a business. And you know, each of us came from different worlds on opposite journeys. I came from more of a traditional business background, and he came from the open source world. So, you know, just to tell you a little bit more about myself, I have 10 years of experience in marketing and management in traditional and digital companies, and my education is all in business. I have an MBA from Mannheim Business School in Germany, and Jam has a very different background from myself, where he's been an open source evangelist over the last decade. He was a very early member of the Drupal community, and he's come into and he's met but very much now part of the TYPO3 community because of some of those open source events, some of the PHP events where he met Matthias Schreiber, and started getting into some discussions about open source and collaboration and working together to grow the pie for everybody. And it was essentially through one of those discussions that led Matthias to come to our office in Cologne to try to prepare for the presentation that they were going to do together at DrupalCon in Boston. And I essentially hijacked that entire preparation time, and it's a good thing that both Matthias and Jam are experienced presenters, because they accomplished nothing that day. Matthias and I spent the day talking about growth strategies for TYPO3. And it was a really, really interesting conversation, and it's essentially led to us starting to work with TYPO3 and being in Düsseldorf in the office, getting to know the team there on a weekly basis, and then a little bit later on also meeting the other Matthias and working a little bit closer with the association and meeting more of the community members at the place like the Marketing Sprint, where we met Esther in the back, and we've been really excited to be a part of the TYPO3 community. Before I tell you more about the journey with TYPO3 Gmbh and OSP, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Open Strategy Partners and essentially our approach to communication. And basically we see a pattern that you can easily recognize in open source software, and that's that, you know, communication drives connection, connection builds community, and communities grow business value. And this is the base of everything that we do and all of the work that we've been working on with both Matthiases now. Yeah, and essentially we've been working closely with the TYPO3 community to talk about how to get more business value through the strategy, and taking a look at understanding what we're about, what the competition is up to, and who is looking for what, and creating and promoting content with what we call authentic communication. And for us, we have this idea about authentic communication, that it's both compelling and technically accurate. I don't know how many people have experienced a lot of marketing communication out there that's just full of a lot of buzzwords, a lot of features and descriptions that could apply to 10,000 different technologies, and they're not very specific about what they talk about, or they just toss around words that seem to be really popular, and you're like, yeah, that sounds really cool, but I don't really know what it does or how it affects me in my life. And so in this idea about authentic communication, we want to get down to the technical accuracy of content or of the technology, and we want to tell the stories around that technology using the voices of the community. We want to interview and talk with and research the actual experiences that people are having with the technology to make a developer or a marketer's life better. And you know, so we have this visual representation up there, and essentially it's, you know, we use empathy to put ourselves in the shoes of others, to understand their perspectives and their needs, and that we always start from that place. Who is your audience? How are you making their life better? We always try to be as clear as possible in the topics that we communicate to whom and in which channel, and we build trust by avoiding as much marketing BS as possible. So working with TYPO3 so far has been a very interesting journey. It's been extremely impressive, actually. The technology is great, the CMS is great, the professionalized development and release cycles is something unique. There's so much enthusiasm and energy in the community that we've seen, and that's really exciting. And we see that TYPO3 CMS needs to grow and expand its rightful place as a global enterprise CMS, and we're trying to help do that. We want bigger and better deals for you and your agencies. And most importantly, we want TYPO3 pitching against Adobe EM and Drupal and the other big CMSs and winning. So, you know, we've been working together to outline the positioning and the strategy and building ideas and constructing a truckload of content and communication to help people discover, try, and adopt TYPO3 CMS. And basically, this diagram up here sort of outlines the approach that we have taken from the beginning, working with Matthias very closely on this. We started by taking a look at the TYPO3 community and what the shared purpose was across the Gmbh and from the association. We took a look, we did a major body of work to discuss, you know, what the goals are, who the target market is, which personas are relevant, identifying new personas that haven't been targeting that we'll get into more later, looking at the competitive landscape, thinking about our value proposition, developing a strategic narrative around that, and seeing how we can enable the community stories. So when we started working together, we really wanted to know a lot more about the market space. We wanted to check out the players, how they were defining themselves, how they're talking with themselves, or talking about themselves, sorry, and you know, how they were really try to understand which personas they were trying to address and the language that they were using to address them. And you know, essentially what we can see here is that the open source enterprise space and the proprietary CMS and marketing cloud space is where we have really interesting opportunity and very strong value proposition. We want to see TYPO3 grow in the next couple of years to the scale and adoption level of Drupal and Joomla, running 2.2 to 5% of the web or more. And when we look at the breakdown of the market, we can see that you know, Joomla essentially runs out of steam at around medium complexity, and because of their architecture, so we just kind of lump them into the same category as WordPress, and which makes Drupal a much better benchmark. And what was really interesting that we discovered very early on in the process, we did a major body of research that we called the value map, and we started comparing TYPO3 with Drupal and Adobe, and what we can see is that technologically speaking, TYPO3 is very much on par with all of those big players. There's just a lot of features and capability that we're just not talking about yet, and so that's an issue that we wanted to address, and that's what we've been working on over the last little while. And so just to tell you a little bit more about this value map, this comparison across the market of all of the features, we really wanted to take a look at, what's out there, what's on offer, who's offering it, what problems are they addressing, what audiences are they addressing, and more specifically, what are the language and terms that they're using to promote themselves. This was really interesting because there was a lot of examples where just expressing it differently, you could see that Adobe was very, very, very invested in reaching the marketer persona. The language that they were using and the way that they were expressing things, they were obviously reaching a marketing audience, whereas Drupal and TYPO3 were very much targeted towards the developer audience. And so we did, this body of research, and we mapped all of the features, broke them down into further categories, and then built a comparison out of that. We enlisted help from Anya Leipsenring, I think she's here somewhere, right? Hi, Anya! And Frank Nagler to help do an analysis of what features we already have in TYPO3 out of the box, and which ones we're not talking about yet. And we then presented this body of work at the marketing sprint in December, which is where I met Esther. And we enlisted the sprint attendees to help refine that map and take it a little bit further and help us develop content around it. So here's just a kind of a very quick overview of the categories that we came up with. This was the basis for the work at the marketing sprint and is kind of the basis of how we're structuring some of the content that we're developing. And this is just a teaser. You obviously don't need to read that in detail, and that's really hard to read from way back there. So exactly, because if you want to know more about this and see this in more detail, then you have to join the next marketing sprint. Hint, hint. But so you're just going to have to trust me when I say that if you were able to read this screenshot, you could see that under authoring experience, 80% of the features already exist in core. We're just not talking about it. And here's another example from marketing management, marketing campaign management. And I wanted to tell you that this was a really, really funny exercise to go through with Frank and Anya, who are like extremely talented technical people. And the repeating phrase of the day was essentially, of course we have that, that's just a CMS. And I was like, great, now let's start talking about it, you know? So it was a really funny exercise, and really it was great to work with them. So let's talk about marketers. So what we've been hearing is that these are the people who have the influence over technology choices for big international deals. This is something that, as you can see from the screenshot above, that the research is showing this, but this also comes from the conversations that we've had in the TYPO3 community. So we were at the agency meetup days at a few of the different locations, and we asked everybody in the room, you know, how many people are selling to IT departments these days versus how many people are selling to marketing departments these days. And I think it was roughly about 80%, or a significant portion of the people had said they're selling to marketers today. And so, knowing this, we've tried to build a narrative around TYPO3 that demonstrates how we make a marketer's life better. I think we already know the story that it makes the developer's life better, and now we really need to focus on telling the story about how it makes the marketer's life better. If you look at here, I've just captured some of the points. Oops, I didn't want to go back. Captured some of the points that make TYPO3 unique in its positioning, and we have sort of two very explicit competitive strategies that we want to focus on, and we want to, first of all, we want to go head-to-head with Adobe Experience Manager as the open source alternative for the enterprise. So we want to be telling the open source story to business managers and marketing managers. Adobe positions themselves as the leading digital experience management solution that helps your business deliver compelling content across experiences, such as web, mobile, and the Internet of Things, at the scale you need to build your brand and drive engagement. We can do all of that. TYPO3 can do all of that and better. You've got all of the features possible that they do, plus you have all of the benefits of open source. So there's an extremely compelling story in there to tell. And the second competitive strategy that we want to focus on is going head-to-head with Drupal 8 as the open source alternative for enterprise. And if you need an open source CMS offering, TYPO3 CMS is a great solution that has all of the technical capabilities that Drupal does and more. There's multi-site and multilingual, any data, any source, and an extremely elegant back-end experience. These are all very, very strong positioning statements, and so we need to be telling that story more and more. So back in December, we hosted the marketing sprint in Bad Homburg in Germany, and we went through a couple of different exercises to try to gain a lot of momentum on the marketing story, and we were focusing our efforts on a persona called Marketing Max, and we went through some exercises around the personas and the buyer's journey, and then we also did some activities where we took that value map exercise that I showed you that you weren't able to read, and we're working on some sample landing pages that might result from that. We worked on case studies, and we also did best practice series blog posts at the marketing sprint. And this is just a sample of the persona and buyer's journey canvas that we worked on. And I want to show you a couple of pictures from the event to try to entice you to join. So, Esther, I promised I would show a picture.
This is the team from India, Poland, and the Netherlands, right?
Yeah. So we had a really great turnout, international audience, intense discussions. As you can see, everybody was getting really motivated and really into the exercise. They were really engaged, and we got a lot of really great results and work that we're in the middle of following up on now. I got you, Matthias, too. I got you in there. And I thought these were funny. Matthias was there in his "This is my jolly face" sweater, and it was awesome. So everybody worked on some case studies, and everybody presented the results. And Jochen here was the contributor of the day. I think he did like 5 case studies or something. I don't know. It was crazy. It was amazing. And we also had a really interesting fishbowl discussion. We talked about the positioning and how we want to position TYPO3 to the rest of the world, we did some really interesting brainstorming exercise that we're going to be following up on in the next marketing sprint. And of course, we've got a nice group photo at the end, but this time we need to do it earlier before some of the group leaves. And then just recently, let me back up. At that marketing sprint, I got into some conversations with the other Matthias about, doing some work with the association and just expanding the scope of the communication work that we were already doing with the Gmbh. And we talked about doing a communication workshop in Düsseldorf. And so at the end of January, we got together and we had this full-day workshop where we were focused on, where the purpose was to enable creation and execution of a holistic, sort of grand, unified marketing communication strategy for TYPO3, including the association, the Gmbh, and the whole community, and to enable and come up with plans to enable community marketing contribution. And so, one of the first exercises that we did was to take a holistic view of what the TYPO3 community actually looks like and who is involved. And you can kind of see that one, not so much, but we see the association, we see the Gmbh, we see the user base, where there's the contributors, there's the event participants, there's the certified experts. We see the market, where there's both the potential clients and the current clients. We see the larger open source community, TYPO3, PHP, Magento, Symfony, etc. And sorry, this was really important as the base of, putting yourself in the shoes of who you're trying to communicate, to think about what you need to communicate and how it's going to help them or make their day better. We had some really great participation, and I got some really, really great ideas out of the day. We talked about, after looking at the community and the stakeholder groups, we got into the various specifics about the goals of the association and the goals and the role of the Gmbh. And those goals essentially break down into ensuring the value and the sustainability of TYPO3 CMS by doing things like communicating its value, trying to increase adoption, expanding value-add use of things like the extensions and services from the community. The second category of goals was about ensuring the health of the TYPO3 community. And so things like increasing developer contributions, providing training and certification, supporting event facilitation and participation, and enabling clear, transparent, and insightful communication. And also creating a really great onboarding experience for people new to the community or new to contributing. And the third area that we focused on under the goals was, the association. The association wants to ensure commercial and economic stability and growth for the TYPO3 community, and that was sort of the basis for the founding of the Gmbh, and that's the role that the Gmbh plays. Oops. And sorry. So the role of the Gmbh is to run all of these revenue-generating programs, things like SLAs and the partner program, and things like that, and then also supporting the other goals that the association is going after. And one of the objectives of the day was to figure out how to do this more collaboratively, more unified, to work on these objectives together. And so one of the main bodies of work that was started at the workshop that we're in the middle of following up on and putting into a shareable format is a collaborative content plan. And and we really wanted to underscore that it's one community, one CMS with the same goals in the content plan, but we got lots of ideas. We started color coding them, breaking down them to different categories. And you know, some of the topics that are going to be represented in this narrative are things like, you know, the features and the functionality of the CMS, of course, things that demonstrate quality, the vibrancy and the visibility of the community out in the larger global community, onboarding, contribution guidelines, and giving recognition to everybody that does participate and contribute. So there's another shot of the activities of the day. We also took some time in the day to talk about the challenges that we face, and specifically the types of challenges that people have to make contribution, and we incorporated those into our execution plan. So we were brainstorming solutions about those as well. And, you know, having the perspective of both the challenges and the aspirations, we talked about execution in depth. We threw it all into a document. We've had 2 meetings since then to talk about the plans, and you know, we wanted to focus on how we can enable support and contribution from the community. And to be able to do that, we need to organize ourselves so that smart, busy people can just jump in and out of contribution as it fits with their other responsibilities. We talked about building smarter workflows with things like content briefs and article templates and writing guidelines. We're building smarter strategic narratives, but breaking those stories down into small, easy-to-do content pieces. And we're breaking down marketing and content contribution by organizing the tasks into small, digestible bits, so that you can contribute at whatever level suits your day, your week, your month. You can write an article. It's easy if you have the right structures in place, but you could also contribute smaller things. You could just do a testimonial or participate in an interview. You could proofread an article, or even simply just review it for its technical accuracy, you know. And so we wanted to really stress that by coming together, you know, we can spread the word, grow the community, and grow TYPO3 CMS adoption. And we want you to join us at the next marketing sprint. And so make sure you're connected in the newsletter, or stay posted, or reach out to Matthias over here, or talk to me if I've convinced you whatsoever to join us in the next marketing sprint. Thank you.